Hi guys, so I actually realized that there is a part 2 to this journal page. So this is now the second page, page 259 for lesson 7-11. So we're continuing with the weights of the state birds. So let's look at number 5. It says the weight of Alaska's willow ptarmigan is about twice as much as the weight of 3 2 9/10 ounce brown thrashers from Georgia. What is the weight of the willow ptarmigan? So we're trying to figure out how much does the willow ptarmigan weigh. The first thing we need to figure out is how much does 3 brown thrashers weigh. So I know that 3 times 2 9/10. So I'm going to change that 2 9/10, this mixed number, I'm going to change it into an improper fraction. So I'm going to do 3 times, and I know that this could actually be written as 10/10, that's 1 whole, plus 10/10, there's your whole number 2, plus 9/10, and you get 29/10. So if I multiplied 29 times 3, right, because you do the whole number times the numerator, I would get 87/10. And you can actually do that on the side if you wanted to. 3 times 9 is 27, and then 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. That's where I got that 87 from. 87/10. That's the first part. Now, remember, the Alaska willow ptarmigan is twice as much. So now I have to take the 87/10 and I have to multiply it by 2. And you're going to multiply the whole number times the numerator. So I can do work over here, 87 times 2. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 8 is 16, plus 1 is 17. And you would get 174/10. So now we have to take 174/10 and we have to turn it back into a mixed number. Well, I know that I could take out 10/10, right? Because there's 10/10 in 100. So there goes, now I'm left with 74/10. I could take out 7 more tenths. So I know that if I took out 17/10, if I took out 17 as my whole number, you would be doing 170 minus 174, or actually we would flip that, 174 minus the 170 you took out, and you would be left with 4/10. So the ptarmigan actually weighs 17 4/10 ounces. All right, now let's look at the second part of this problem. Is that more or less than 1 pound? How much more or how much less? So we have to figure that out. So we know that if it's 17 4/10 ounces, is it more than a pound? Well, yeah, it's more than a pound because a pound is only 16 ounces. So we automatically know that it's more. Now, how much more? So if we subtract these, 17 minus 16 is 1, and you're left with 1 4/10. So it is more than 1 4/10, more than 1 pound. Okay, now let's look at the try this. Number 6. The scissor-tailed flycatcher is Oklahoma's state bird. Its combined weight of 8 scissor-tail flycatchers is 3/4 of a pound. How many ounces does each of these Oklahoma state birds weigh? So there's a few things that we have to do here. So right away, I'm going to go back to the chart that we did, and I'm going to look at 3/4 of a pound. And I know that that's 12 ounces. So I'm just going to make a little note to myself here. So 3/4 of a pound is 12 ounces, because remember, they want the weight in ounces. So now you have to use that knowledge of 12 ounces. So if I have 8 scissor tail flycatchers, so I'm going to use fraction circles to help me, because remember, we're talking about 8 groups of 8. So I'm drawing a fraction circle with 8 parts. And now, all together, those weigh 12 ounces. So I'm going to shade in 12 parts. So I know if I shade in this whole thing, that's 8 parts. 9, 10, 11, 12. So now I know this is one whole and then half of another whole. So that means each of these Oklahoma State birds weighs 1.5 ounces. Okay, let's look at 7. The weight range for New Hampshire's purple finch is 0.64 ounce, or 0.64 ounce, to 1.09 ounces. What is the difference in weight between the smallest and the largest purple finch? So we've been doing a lot of word problems with fractions, but we haven't yet used decimals. But we know that the other way to write 64 hundredths is to write it as a fraction, 64 hundredths. And that means 1 and 9 hundredths can be written as 1 and 9 hundredths. So you're just rewriting those decimals as fractions. And this is actually going to help us for our next lesson next week, which is going to be all about using decimals. Okay, so now we have to know the difference. So we have to do some subtraction here. So 1, and actually to subtract, I'm going to take this whole number and I'm going to make it into this mixed number and make it into an improper fraction and have it as 109 hundredths minus 64 hundredths. And the reason I did that, because it is easier to subtract the numerators if there are no whole numbers involved. So if you did 109 minus 64, you would get 45, and your denominator stays the same, 45 hundredths. But now, the problem uses decimals, so we need to turn 45 hundredths into a decimal. So 45 hundredths is equal to 0.45. So that's how many ounces is the difference between the largest and the smallest purple finch. Okay, now watch the next video to figure out how to solve your math boxes.